Hello and welcome back. It is a beautiful morning out here, September 29th. The sun is shining. It's supposed to be pretty warm a week, well, seasonally warm anyways. So let's take a look and see what's going on this week. Well, there's still quite a few fields that are coming off, still a fair bit of standing canola, but I would say most cereals at this point are done. Fields like this one that was done, relatively recently, like last week, still pretty clean due to the dry conditions we've had for the last couple of weeks. There's been very limited volunteer growth in any of these more recently harvested fields, so most of them are still very clean. Meanwhile, fields like this pulse field, which had been harvested weeks ago, are completely opposite to the more recently harvested. This one has had a couple showers on it since being harvested, so you can see we got lots of volunteer peas in here. There's some Canada thistle, there's dandelions, a little bit of alfalfa. We got some volunteer barley going on in here. There's foxtail and brome. So if you look back at last week's conversation about cutworms, you can tell with all of the various plants in here, we have lots of different target species cutworms would like to lay eggs on, and a field like this could potentially be at a higher risk for something like a cutworm infestation come spring. If you were to be seeding, canola or something in here, you could be at a higher risk of seeing damage. Well, irrigated fields are definitely seeing more growth, both regrowth as well as volunteer. So you can see here we got a bunch of volunteer barley, and there's a bunch of volunteer canola from last year's crop in here as well. Not a whole lot of winter annuals coming up yet. I think there is the odd one here and there that's just kind of starting. Now that we're, towards the end of September here, we're going to start seeing stinkweed, flicksweed, stuff like that starting to emerge here pretty quick, especially once we get a couple cool nights and a little bit of frost. Always seems to start to bring on the germination of those guys. But yeah, for right now, keep an eye on these fields. Well, the brassica and oat cover crops are looking pretty good. You can see the oats are in head emergence, they're heading now. And a few of the brassicas are actually even starting to flower. There is multiple types of brassicas in here, plus probably a little bit of volunteer canola at the same time as well. So yeah, pretty interesting. You can see that's a turnip flowering right there. So still doing good. Once we get some frost, it's probably going to slow growth down in here a bit, but right now looking like some pretty good quality cow chow. Canada thistle is always a good weed to start talking about this time of the year. You can see this big patch right here. So this whole patch is all basically regrowth, and it is all, probably mostly all connected underground by underground rhizomes. So really what we're trying to do when we're controlling Canada thistle, we're trying to kill those underground rhizomes, not so much the above ground thistle growth. That's just kind of the symptom of the problem. It's the mushroom on top of the fungi, So in order to do that, there's a few things we need to do. So right now you need to understand this regrowth right now, which is coming up from the crown. This is the nutrient flow from this is all pretty much coming up. This is the rhizome, and the root system is feeding this growth. It is trying to get this growth big enough that it can flower and set seed and therefore, spread and reproduce. However, what we want to do is we want to drive our pesticide, like our glyphosate or our dicamba or our Lantrell, down into that root to kill that rhizome, because that is really where all of these are coming up from. We want to control that rhizome. Seed control is secondary. So what we want to do is we want to wait until we've had usually a frost event. Will kind of reverse that nutrient flow. It's going to drive that nutrient flow back down into that rhizome and carry our pesticide with it. In this case, it would be, glyphosate and dicamba, for example. So that is going to get that down into the root and kill off that root, and then hopefully we won't have any problem with that. However, we do need to be aware that, too much frost is not good either. If the frost is severe enough that it is killing off all of the leaf material, then that reduces the amount of target that we have to hit, and it can reduce how much chemical we can get down into that rhizome. So too much frost is not good, but some frost is good. And for Canada thistle, which is not regrowth in an area like this, right now would be an ideal time for the most part. It's, finishing its reproductive cycle, it's flowering or has set seed, and that nutrient flow has already reversed and is going down. So for established plants along headlands, which are, unharvested, would be in that stage right now. Well, here on this dryland pea stubble, we got some winter wheat that's been seeded. Let's take a look at our seed row conditions here. As you can see, that surface layer is very, very dry here. So let's hope we can find, okay, so there's a seed sitting in the dry. There's some fertilizer prills. So yeah, there's the main band of seed right here. As you can see, all that seed is sitting dry. So hopefully we can get some moisture in here to get this popped, because now we are into October. we only have so many days left to get this established. We want to get it up and at least to 2-leaf stage prior to the onset of winter and the cessation of growth. Well, over here by Picture Butte, there is lots of corn coming off. This particular field should be at about ideal moisture here now. So this is a Pioneer hybrid. You can see we are in dent stage here. Ears are starting to dry down. Particularly the west side of the field here is drying down rapidly because of the wind, but overall, it's all looking good. Well, here we have an irrigated field that's been manured and worked since it was harvested. So this was winter wheat, and you can see down here we have quite the flush of weeds coming up in here. There is cleavers, there's chickweed, there's pigweed, lambs, quarters, bits of everything, some mallow and some buckwheat, all coming up in here now since she has been watered, especially volunteer wheat. So we really should get in here and take care of this here this fall. Volunteer winter wheat can be quite a pain to deal with in the spring. If you try to get into a field early before the wheat has broken dormancy to seed, you're going to have quite a mess. So you need to take care of volunteer winter wheat in the fall. We don't want it to survive over into the spring where it's going to be harder to control. Here we have some fall rye that's looking pretty good. This was seeded a few weeks ago. It is now mostly in the 2-leaf stage. However, you can see that the volunteer barley is also having a very good emergence and very good growth staging as well. So in some spots like right here where that swath was laying, we have a huge amount of barley. So that may put some pressure on the stand of rye in these spots. But hopefully we get a killing frost relatively soon, which will put a stop to the growth of the barley and allow the rye to take over. Well, there's lots of these oats are coming off today, so this field is getting silaged here right now. Unfortunately, it is far too windy to be flying the drone here today, so I won't be able to get any drone footage, but otherwise the oats themselves are looking pretty good. They are starting to mature. Some of these heads are now into the dough stage in here. We were probably still about roughly, I don't know, I'd say 10 days to 2 weeks away from swath timing for combine harvest for dry grain. So being the early part of October, probably not worth the risk to leave it that long. There's been a few years where we've had a lot of snow on the ground already at this point. Checking out some fall rye down by McGrath. This rye has been in the ground for about 2 weeks, and you'll see there's not a whole lot of a stand here. There's a couple here, a couple there kind of thing, but overall very poor stand right now. Basically there's just absolutely zero moisture in that seed row. The ground is just completely dry, so we're really struggling to get germination. Somehow the volunteer canola seems to be finding enough moisture to germinate. There's quite a thick stand of it so far, but right now we really need a shower in here to get some more of this rye up before we're into winter. This winter wheat stubble got sprayed about roughly 10 days ago now, so 878 and glyphosate. You can see we get some pretty good effect in here. Dandelions are curling up and going down. Hopefully we won't have to worry about them next year. Prickly lettuce, you know, some of these smaller plants are pretty crispy. Definitely got good control on them. These bigger ones are hanging in there, but they are still going to drop some seed. So we'll have to worry about some prickly lettuce next year, but for right now, overall pretty good control on the weeds that were up here after harvest. Well, that'll be it for this week. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.